Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at some longer term analysis using some daily end of day data on some US stocks. But as usual, let's start with the risk disclaimer. Remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken. They're just shown for illustration and trading purposes only. Want to remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll put that another way. All professional traders know and understand, and more importantly accept, that losses can and will unfold. As all a part of successful trading is keeping the losses small but not avoiding them. Losses will always happen. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, let's have a look at some end of day charts. I'm going to start with have a look at the indices, and in this video for these I'm going to use spiders, the Qs and diamonds, so the SPY, the QQQ and DIA. These are the ETFs on the S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100 and the Dow 30. So this is a daily chart of the SPY. You can see that a few days ago we had a TS1 sell unfold. The MTP trend had gone grey to show the market trend was in the process of potentially reversing. If we place the analysis on, you can see that this actually gave us a short trade in its own rights. Interesting enough, here you can see that our entry level was one tick below the previous day's bar. So you can see here we actually had a gap open. So this is a good example to show you how easily it is to adjust your number of shares to keep your initial risk the same, in this case less than 0.5% of a sample $20,000 account. So you grab the entry line, drag it down, and as you see I'm dragging it down. Can you see the number of shares adjust? So go to the previous day's open, is where you'd come in, so you'd be shorting 95 shares as opposed to the original, which was, if I put it on again, 147. So it shows you how to adjust the number of shares to keep your initial risk the same and constant. But we're not doing analysis on the spiders. We're using this for an example of the way that the S&P may be in a process of making a decline. Let's have a look at the Qs, and here the market went up and made a new high, which is interesting how it's diverging with the S&P, which is actually going down. In other words, this has made a lower high here, and actually the same with diamonds as well, the same with the DIA, the Dow Jones. Made a lower high here, even though our MTP trend is blue. So the Qs are actually diverging. But the interesting things on the Qs is if I go out to the higher time frame, which is the weekly chart, if we draw a weekly chart, and I place a DP on from the previous high, which would have been here. Remember, these DPs areas on the chart in advance, they're there before the market even gets there. See how the Qs are actually at DP resistance. So if anything, if this resistance holds and the market starts to decline, we should be anticipating a decline down into the next support zone, which will be down here. So if we go back to a daily chart, and I zoom out a bit, we could be anticipating a decline on the Nasdaq. But obviously that's if this resistance holds. If this resistance doesn't hold and the market goes through this, well then obviously we're going to anticipate a continued rally. But for now we're working off the premises that resistance is coming in at this level and we're anticipating a potential decline. So with this in mind, that the Nasdaq looks to be at the best potential resistance zone, i.e. the weekly chart, and also the SPY. Spiders look to be in a potential position where market decline is anticipated. Let's now open up a scanner. This is dead easy in our MTPredictor version 8. I'm using end of day data from our end of day recommended end of day data provider, which is Norgate. So for this I'm just going to scan a local folder, which is where our data is stored, and here I'm going to scan the folder I have, which has got the Nasdaq 100 stocks in. So I'm just going to select that and then just do download. I'm going to do it on a daily basis. In other words, we're using daily data. If you want to, you can select weekly there, and basically MTPredictor can create weekly charts from the daily data on the fly. But here you can see it's doing now. It's loading the Nasdaq 100 in and basically scanning for potential setups. And here they are here. We can see we had one on Apple a few days ago. So if I highlight this, right mouse click, do a new chart, you can see there's the sell on Apple a few days ago, coming in at the high there on a a flat MTP trend. I'm now going to link these together. I'm just going to link symbol and period. I can link them to the scanner. So I'm just going to select all those and link those red as well. So what that means is now what I can do is when you click on a symbol in the scanner, it then changes the chart to that particular symbol. I'm now going to search, or I'm going to scan for, or I'm going to filter these for our trade setups. In other words, sort the scanner. So I'm just going to click on the column header there, and you can see it sorts them to get all our recent setups here. You can see it tells you the setup and how many bars ago. For example, on INTU, we had a setup a couple of days ago. If I come down this list, you can then just highlight it and use the cursor to come down to have a look at the particular setups. Let's keep on going down. This was an interesting one because what is a good idea to do is, rather than just using the index as we've done here to get us our trend direction, when you get onto the individual share, it's also good to have a look at the pattern on the individual share on the higher time frame. So for example, on this one, on the cruise line holdings, had a TS1 sell a few days ago, but if we go to the menu here and we do weekly, it's a good idea to see whether this setup came in at higher time frame resistance. So if I zoom out a bit, you can see that this was on a weekly time frame, was the last swing down to the low. So as per normal, we go back to the last high, which was here, right mouse click, do DP, and this would have given an area of resistance where this particular stock was likely to find resistance. But can you see how the rally here came into weekly resistance? So now if we go down back into the daily chart, can you see how the high a couple of weeks ago came in at weekly resistance? Therefore, this was a good looking stock to potentially sell. Market made initial decline down, corrective rally up, right mouse click over this TS1 sell, do our analysis. This gave us our initial trade setup. If I just give myself a little bit of room here, also on this particular stock, what's interesting is if the rally up into this high, if I right mouse click to Elliott wave intermediate, well, it's missed that. I need to go into the high there. This was actually a 5-wave sequence up here. We know that after a completed 5-wave sequence, a market will tend to decline into the DP from the prior wave 4. So if I do the DP off this wave 4 here, this would give a potential support zone, and as you can see, the market has got a little bit of way to go before it can get to this support zone. So rather than using this first target here, you may want to grab and drag this profit target down to this level to have a potential larger trade. If this DP support zone is breached, well then the next level would be from the DP from the start of the sequence. So you go back to the start of the sequence, right back here. Again, do DP, gives you a potential support zone on the chart in advance, and we can grab and drag, bring this down here, and this gives you another target, which if the market gets down to this level could be a potential 8R profit, or the profit 8 times greater than the initial risk. But this is the basis of what we do, is that you start with the indexes, have a look to see the overall market position, as we've done here, where I had a look at the weekly resistance on the Qs and saw that we were at weekly resistance, then did a scan for the individual stocks, then went through the individual stocks and chose which ones looked the best. In this case, one where we were also at a weekly DP resistance on its own particular market data, and again that will give you a potential stock to short. If we come down here and see Apple, again Apple here, a DP sell at the high. Let's right mouse click, paste the analysis on. Could be a potentially nice trade there. If I right mouse click again, do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see this was a potential 5-wave sequence. That would be the DP from the wave 4. If this DP is exceeded, we go right the way back to the start, and that's the next potential support zone. If Apple gets all the way down there, that could be a very good trade indeed. Obviously, we don't know whether the market is going to decline and whether the individual stocks will make these levels. That's why we have our position sizing. So if you're wrong on this, you'd lose one risk unit. If you're right and the market gets to the first target, the profit would be 7 times greater than that, or 7R, or 7 risk units. But that's the process for doing a analysis on end of day daily data using MTPredictor, where you start with the index, get an idea of the market trend with the index, then do a scan of your individual market sector, then look through your individual stocks, looking at them, and then you choose which ones look the best to take your individual trade on those individual stocks which have a good looking pattern on its individual stock that falls in line with your overall market sector direction. So let's see how the market unfolds over the next few days and weeks and months, and see whether the market does decline. If it does, we'll come back and do a follow-up video to see how these unfold in the future.